last thing I'll say before we move on, I will, and this is going to sound shocking, and I am not ever above joining in on a Maggie Haberman or Caitlin Collins drag, but
Although Caitlyn has
you
turned
know,
it around lately, it seems like.
yeah, yeah, but here's the thing though, Maggie pisses me off. She does too much access stuff, but we wouldn't know some of the stuff we know about Trump if Maggie wasn't putting in that work. And so you know how you said it's like only the 1%, even the ones who really, really, truly pisses off. Part of the reason why they piss us off is because we've seen them do some amazing stuff. And so now when they're pissing us off, is that just them being, is that balance? Right? But for the one hand, I mean, like I say, I will never pass up a Maggie Haberman drag. But I bet you if Maggie Haberman did not exist, the Trump years may have been worse. Her accent, she did make some really good stuff. We were just pissed off when we know she could have, dragged him or something when she wasn't going for the jugular. But she does a lot of good stuff, and so it's weird, and it's, I mean, think about it. It's just like any kind of relationship. Although these are people we don't know or have personal relationships with, there are times in which they make us happy. There's times in which they make us, angry. Which takes me to the next one because we're going to go a little Biden heavy to begin. As you said before we even started, this is a big week. There was a lot. This past week was a big week, but the next two I'm going to marry together are Howard Stern and the New York Times. It came out this week. Political reported that there was a belief, although of course the New York Times has denied it, but A.G. Sulzberger, who's the publisher, who's only in his 30s or 40s, and who's a nepo baby because his father was a publisher, has kind of said unless Biden gives us a in-depth interview, we're going to continue going ahead and talking about his age, and we'll talk about that. But I'm marrying that to the day after that story broke. Joe Biden went on the Howard Stern and had an amazing interview. Now, just so you know, I've been a Stern fan for much longer than I really will acknowledge, and I became a Stern fan probably in the first part of this century, maybe last part of last century. But the thing that he does not get enough credit for is Howard Stern is one of the best interviewers ever. If you get a chance, it might be on YouTube. If you ever get a chance, his interview with JFK Jr. is one of the most amazing. What he's able to get out and draw out of people. We all know about just the outrageously politically incorrect space that Howard has played for years. Howard is definitely a liberal. He's a progressive, and he definitely supports Democratic candidates. But he also goes into that male locker room, borderline misogynistic side. But at the end of the day, the man is a talented personality and he's a talented interviewer. And I thought the Biden interview was great. I'm not sure if you heard it or heard any parts of it. I ended up tuning in and hearing a good portion of it. But what were your thoughts? What were your thoughts on Joe Biden doing the Howard Stern show?
Yeah, I saw the part about suicide, which I thought was very powerful from Joe Biden's side. Um, Speaking of Howard Stern, I know everybody looks at these podcasters these days, the Joe Rogans, all these other people. Howard Stern had basically invented all of that. I know he didn't invent it technology wise, but he really invented, I think, the idea of a show where you just interview people and just talk. And I know that's always existed, but you know what I mean, right? He brought it to the forefront. Um, it's a great point you bring up because this also marries the Maggie Haberman thing, right? The reason that we get upset with them is not because they hold things back. I think we get upset with them because they are putting themselves in the story. If you're a journalist, from what I understand, maybe it's just movies, but you're not supposed to put yourself in the story. Maggie does when she holds things back for a book. If you hold things back because you can't source it, you need a second source, you can't confirm it, you want to get Trump's comment on it. I understand all of that stuff. But to hold it back just to sell books after an election where the American people need to know, that's where I think it drives me crazy. That's what the New York Times thing is as well. They are punishing Joe Biden because of access. They want access to him. They've always had it, and now they don't have it. And remember, there was a video that went viral where he called them out in 2019 to their faces in that one video. I don't know if you remember, John. So it's not like it's nothing new. I think they've been pissed off since that moment, to be honest. But I find it very disheartening that they will purposely push a story. Look, he's old. I'm not saying they're making up lies, right? But to purposely put yourself in the story. The New York Times are now in the story because they're trying to push the age narrative. Just because you don't have access to him is fascinating, John. It's also malpractice on some level because you're not complaining about Trump. You don't have access to him, do you? He's not giving you a one-on-one sit down, is he? And he's the same age, and he's probably in more cognitive decline. So again, it's just holding Democrats to a certain standard that you refuse to hold Republicans to, and I think that's what gets people upset. But the thing is, John, I think this has backfired on them. I think they, and I don't know if some of their journalists are caping for them or whatever, but they sent out an army of people to kind of dispel this. Like, this never happened, blah, blah, blah. They were going at some of the pollsters because the pollsters thought it was a little weird. And I think, sorry, and I think that, I think in today's age, I think what people don't like is I wouldn't use the word bully, but the idea of a bully of, hey, we're gonna go at you until you give us what we want. I think people are gonna go against that, and people are much more inclined to listen to Howard Stern than they are to read the New York Times. So I think this backfired by them in a big way. But you know, it's interesting, John. And I'll bring up the Trump court case because why not? There was this graphic that was created that they asked each juror where they got their news from, and the majority of, I wouldn't say all of them, but a good amount of them, at least 75% of them, had the New York Times as their number one news kind of source. So it's all kind of connected, John. I think they're starting to lose power, so they're trying to get power. And it's just all those dynamics that I think are fascinating.